Welcome everyone to Math 103, sections 1.6 and 1.7. Today we're working on adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing rational numbers, also known as fractions. To multiply rational numbers, we're going to multiply straight across on the top, straight across on the bottom. Numerator by numerator, denominator by denominator. Let's look at an example of this. So we're going to multiply 2 sevenths by 3 fifths. So multiplying across the top, 2 times 3 gives us 6. 7 times 5 on the bottom is 35. 6 35ths is the final answer, and that is in simplest form. Your turn, number 1. Multiplying across the top, 4 times 2 gives us 8. 5 times 11 is 55. 8 55ths. Some exercises will require simplifying the result. Next example, we're multiplying 4 ninths by 6 tenths. Now there are 2 different ways to do this. We can multiply first and then simplify, or we can simplify first and then multiply. I'm going to multiply first. 4 times 6, that's 24. 9 times 10 is 90. All right, now we need to find a common factor, and they're both even, so let's just start dividing by 2. Let's see what happens there. Divide by 2, divide by 2, so we get 12 on top and 45 on the bottom. We're not quite done yet. We still have a common factor of 3, so we'll have to divide the top by 3, divide by 3, and we get 4 15ths. 4 and 15, they have no common factors, so 4 15ths is simplest form. Your turn, number 2. Now this one, I'm going to use the other approach. I'm going to simplify first. And it's okay when we're multiplying, and only when we're multiplying, to simplify across fractions. So I notice we have a 2 here and an 8 here. The fraction 2 over 8 simplifies to 1/4. So we can go ahead and simplify here. This turns into a 1, that turns into a 4. We have 1/4 there. Now if we go across this way, 15 divided by 5, that's 3. So that turns into a 3, and that turns into a 1. We have 3 over 1. Now we can multiply straight across. 1 times 3 is 3. 1 times 4 is 4. And the answer in simplified form is 3/4. Make sure you keep track of your negative signs. This is where I see many mistakes. We're going to multiply negative 2 sevenths times 14 over 5. Now I can reduce. 14 divided by 7 is 2, so this will be 2 over 1. Multiplying straight across, we get a 4 on top and a 5 on the bottom. So we get a 4 fifths, but we have to keep that negative sign. So the answer is negative 4 fifths. What I see a lot of people doing, and once you start doing operations, you forget about the negative sign. So just take a look back once you write your answer to make sure you've collected your negative sign. Your turn, number 3. We're going to multiply 5 twelfths by negative 4 tenths. So don't misinterpret this as being subtraction. Since we have the number in parentheses, the operation is multiplication. So I'm going to simplify this one first. 4 divided by 12, that reduces to 1/3. So that turns into a 1, and that turns into a 3. 5 divided by 10 is the same as 1/2. So that turns into 1/2. Multiplying straight across, we get a 1 on top, a 6 on the bottom, and our answer will be negative because a positive times a negative is negative. So negative 1/6 for your term number 3. Now we can apply this procedure to any number of fractions. And if you like that technique where we're simplifying first, keep in mind that you can simplify across any of the fractions as long as you're dealing with something in the numerator and something in the denominator of one of the fractions. So next example, we're multiplying 1/3 by negative 6/7 by negative 14/5. Now another way of doing these is to write out the prime factorization of all the numbers and then cancel that way. So let's try that technique. So I'm going to rewrite these as 1/3 times negative, and 6/7 can be written as 2 times 3 over 7. And then negative 14/5 can be written as negative 2 times 7 over 5. Some people like this way because you just see all the numbers listed out there and we'll just cancel the matches. So we've got a 7 on top, 7 on the bottom, so those cancel. We have a 3 on top, 3 on the bottom, so those cancel. And that's all the matches, so now we'll just multiply straight across. 1 times 2 times 2. That's 4 on top. 1 times 1. Remember, when you cancel, those turns into 1s. So 1 times 1 times 5. And the answer is 4/5. So we got negative times a negative is a positive. And this number is positive, so we get a positive answer. Your turn, number 4. Now in this one, we're still doing negative times a negative is a positive, times a positive, that gives us a positive answer. And in this case, I'm just going to multiply straight across on top. 3 times 12 times 2. 72 on top. And on the bottom, 4 times 5 times 9, that's 180 on the bottom. All right, now we've got simplifying to do. So this method, though it's easier in the first step, now we have more work to do. Well, that's fine. So we're going to do divide by 2 since they're both even. That gives us 36 over 90. And I can do that again. Divide by 2 gives us 18 over 45. And then both of these are divisible by 3, so I'll try that. Divide by 3, and we get 6 15ths. And there are no common factors. Oh, there are common factors. Look at that. We got a 3 and a 3. That gives us 2/5. Now, dividing rational numbers is very similar to multiplying, but we have an additional step. So the first vocabulary word we need to know to divide fractions is the reciprocal. A reciprocal is what you get when you take a fraction and flip it over. I'm just going to use R for reciprocal because I don't want to keep writing that out over and over again. So the reciprocal of A over B is, flip the fraction over, the numerator becomes the denominator, and the denominator becomes the numerator. Reciprocal of A over B is B over A. So for example, if we want the reciprocal of negative 3/7, you flip that fraction over, keeping the negative, you get negative 7/3. Your turn, number 5. Find the reciprocal of 5/2. Flip that fraction over and we get 2/5. So the first step in any division problem is to convert it to multiplication. And we're going to do that by flipping the second fraction over. In other words, taking the reciprocal of the second fraction. Now the mistake I see students make is flipping the first fraction over instead of the second one. Make sure you're flipping that second one over. So this turns into A over B times D over C. So we convert from division to multiplication. First fraction stays exactly the same. Second fraction becomes the reciprocal. Let's look at an example. We're going to divide 2/5 by 7/5. Convert to multiplication. First fraction stays the same. Second fraction becomes 5/7. Now we can cancel the 5's. Multiplying straight across, 2 times 1 is 2. 1 times 7 is 7. So 2/7 for that one. Your turn, number 6. 3/8 divided by 6/4. Converting to multiplication, that gives us 3/8 times 4/6. Multiplying straight across, 3 times 4 is 12. 8 times 6 is 48. All right, now we need to reduce this thing. And then divide by 4 on the top and the bottom. So 12 divided by 4 is 3. 48 divided by 4 is 12. Looks like we still have a common factor of 3. Divide by 3, divide by 3, and get 1/4 is the final answer for that one. Now, just like with our multiplication problems, there will be times when we need to simplify the result, just like we saw here, except we could have simplified in the beginning and made it a whole lot easier. Next example, 8/3 divided by 2/5. Converting to multiplication, get 8/3 times 5/2. Now this one, let's simplify first. So 8 divided by 2 is 4, so this turns into 4/1. 4 times 5 is 20. 3 times 1 is 3. So we get 20/3. Your turn, number 7. Use whichever simplification method you like, or whichever simplification method you dislike the least, whatever the case may be. Converting to multiplication, got 3/10 times 4/5. And now, look at this fraction we got, 4/10. If we divide the top and bottom by 2, that simplifies to 2/5. Now we'll multiply straight across. 3 times 2 is 6. 5 times 5 is 25. 6/25. Now when we convert to multiplication, don't lose your negatives. Remember, when we take the reciprocal, that negative stays with the number. So we're going to do 15/2 divided by -12/7. So converting to multiplication, that gives us 15/2 times, still negative, 7/12. And now we've got a fraction here we can simplify. We have 15/12. If you divide the top and bottom by 3, that will reduce to 5/4. All right, now we'll multiply straight across. 5 times 7, that's 35 in the numerator. 2 times 4 is 8, and we still have that negative. So let's make a little room here. -35/8. Your turn, number 8. -4/7 divided by 6/21. Converting to multiplication, we get -4/7 times 21/6. Now let's see if we can simplify here. 21 divided by 7, that's 3, so we get 3/1. 4/6, that reduces to 2/3. Now we can multiply straight across. 2 times 3, oh wait, we got one more cancellation. Hang on here, we got 3 on top and 3 on the bottom, that's nice. So those will cancel each other out there to 1/1. So now multiplying across the top, 2 times 1 is 2. 1 times 1 on the bottom, keep that negative sign, don't lose that. And 2/1 is just -2. All right, now we're going to move on to adding and subtracting fractions. So if you look at any fraction, it actually has a meaning. And if you know what these things actually represent in the real world, it makes it easier to remember what operations we're doing and why we're doing it. So let's take a look at a fraction here. We got 1/4. The numerator and denominator have specific meanings. The denominator tells us what we're talking about. We're talking about quarters. Quarters of something. We split something up into 4 equal parts. So think of like 1/4 of a dollar. Or 1/4 of a stack of, or a basket full of basketballs. We're going to take 1/4 of those. The top represents how many of those quarters we have. So in this case, we have 1/4. We could have 2/4 or 3/4. Now, when we're adding things together, we can only add together things that are exactly the same. So we can't add quarters to 1/6 because those are totally different things. So it'd be like trying to add together pencils and bicycles. What do you get when you add 2 pencils plus 3 bicycles? 2 pencils and 3 bicycles. You can't combine them because they're different. We can only combine things that are exactly the same. And here we're talking about quarters, so we can only combine quarters with other quarters. First operation we're going to do is adding or subtraction of fractions with the same denominator. So let's subtract 9/13 and negative 2/13. Well, subtracting a negative is like adding, so the first thing I'm going to do is convert this to addition. So 9/13 plus 2/13. And now we're going to add these two things together. We only add the numerators, because the numerators tell us how many of these things that we have. These things that we're calling 13ths of something. Now don't change the denominator, because when we add things together, the things we're adding, that doesn't change. If we add together 2 basketballs plus 3 basketballs, we get 5 basketballs. We don't get 5 volleyballs. You don't change the thing you're adding. So don't change that denominator, because that tells us what we're adding together. So 9 plus 2, that's 11. 13th on the bottom. Your turn, number 9. (10/11) plus negative 6/11. So what we're going to do now is I'm just going to, for clarity, this is an optional step, I'm just going to write this as subtraction instead. So 10/11 minus 6/11. Those two things, they mean exactly the same thing. All right, now since we're subtracting, we're going to subtract the numerators. 10 minus 6 gives us 4, and the denominator stays the same, so 4/11. Now if we want to add and subtract fractions with different denominators, we need to find a common denominator. We're going to convert these fractions so that they have the same denominator. That way we're adding together things that are exactly the same. So we're going to find the LCM of the denominators, and then we're going to rewrite the original fractions with that LCM as the denominator of both of the fractions. Then we'll do the operation and write the answer in simplest form. So for example, adding together 1/6 and 3/10. First we're going to find the LCM using the techniques that we learned last time. So I'm going to create this little table here. Now looking at the denominators, you got 6 and 10. 6 can be written as 2 times 3, and 10 as 2 times 5. Now since we're doing the multiple, remember multiples are bigger, so that means we need all the numbers. So whether or not there's a match or not, we're going to bring it down. So 2 times 3 times 5. So we got 15 times 2, that gives us 30. So 30 is the LCM of both of these fractions. So how do you figure out what to multiply by? Well, take your LCM and divide it by the current denominator. 30 divided by 6 is 5, so that means we need to take 1/6 and multiply it by 5/5. And this is how it should be written, 5/5. I see some students write it like this. That's incorrect, because what this means is we're multiplying by 5/1. So we're going to get a completely different answer, 5/6 here. That's not what we want. We want to change the denominator as well, so make sure you're multiplying by this fraction 5/5. Another reason to write it as 5/5, we can only multiply by 1 and not change the value. 5 divided by 5 has a value of 1. So when we multiply by this fraction, we don't change the value of 1/6, we're just changing what it looks like. And you can test that out when you get done. In your calculator, type in 1/6, you'll get a decimal, and then type in 5/30 and see if you get the same decimal. If so, you've done it correctly. Now 10, 30 divided by 10 gives us 3, so we're going to multiply 3/10 times 3/3 to give us 9/30. So here's the new forms of those two fractions. So this becomes, I'll write it down here, 1/6 plus 3/10 becomes 5/30 plus 9/30. Add them together, 5 and 9 gives us 14/30. Now last thing we need to do is reduce this. So divide by 2, and we get 7/15. And that brings us to your turn number 10. Five eighths plus 1/12. So we're going to find the LCM of 8 and 12 first. Prime factorization of 8 is 2 times 2 times 2. And with 12, it's 2 times 2 times 3. So to find the least common multiple, we'll add all these together. 2 times 2 times 2 times 3. We have an LCM of 24. So for the first fraction, 24 divided by 8 is 3. So we'll multiply 5/8 by 3/3. So 5/8 is the same as 15/24. Now we'll do the same thing with 1/12. 24 divided by 12 is 2, so we'll multiply this by 2/2. And that gives us 2/24. Adding those together, (17/24). And 17 is prime, so there's no common factors, and that is simplest form. Next example, we throw a negative in there, 3/4 plus negative 2/5. So at least common multiple of 4 and 5 is 20. So that means I need to multiply the first fraction by 5/5, and the second fraction by 4/4. And that'll give us the common denominator of 20. So 5 times 3 is 15. 15/20 plus negative 8/20. So what we're doing here is basically subtraction. So 15 minus 8 gives us 7 on top, 20ths. Your turn, number 11. (11/12) minus 3/5. Now there's a trick you can use here. Notice that 12 and 5 have no common factors other than 1. So we can just multiply this fraction by this denominator over itself. So that's 5/5. And then take this denominator, multiply this fraction by it over itself. And that will give us a common denominator. And this actually works with every addition or subtraction of fractions like this. You can always do it like this. Now if you do it with numbers here that do have a common factor, you're not going to get the least common multiple, you're going to get some other common multiple. It still works, you'll just need to reduce the fraction at the end. So you have one more step at the end. But this step ends up being a lot easier. So you can decide which way you want to do it. Multiply now, 5 times 11 is 55. 5 times 12 is 60, so 55 60ths minus 36 60ths. And the answer then is 19 60ths. Just like with multiplication, we can extend this technique to any number of fractions. And so last time, we were finding the least common multiple of 3 numbers. Well, we need to do that this time. So we got 3/8, 1/12, and negative 5/16. So let's look at the prime factorizations of those 3 numbers. 8, we have 2 times 2 times 2. 16 is 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. And then 12 is 2 times 2 times 3. Now bringing down all of them, we got 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 3. So the least common multiple of 8, 12, and 16 is 48. So we need to convert all these fractions so that they have a denominator of 48. Now 3/8, take 48 divided by 8, that's 6. So we're going to multiply 3/8 by 6 over 6. $18 48 for that one. 1/12, 48 divided by 12 is 4. So we'll multiply this fraction by 4 over 4. So 1/12 is the same as 4 48. Now do negative 5/16. 48 divided by 16 is 3, so we'll multiply this by 3 over 3. That gives us negative 15 48. Now we can add all these together. 18 48 plus 4 48 plus negative 15 48. Adding across the top, we got 18 plus 4 is 22, minus 15 is 7. The answer is 7/48, and that is simplified. Your turn, number 12. So least common multiple of 2, 3, and 6 is 6. So we don't actually need to convert this fraction. We'll just leave that one as it is. We'll convert these two. So 1/2, if we have an LCM of 6, 6 divided by 2 is 3, so we'll multiply 1/2 by 3 over 3. 6 divided by 3 is 2, so we'll multiply 1/3 by 2 over 2, and we'll leave 5/6. So here we get 3/6 plus 2/6 plus 5/6. So 3 and 2 and 5 is 10. Get 10/6 after we add all those together. Now we need to reduce this. So we'll divide both the numerator and the denominator by 2. And you get 5/3. Next example. Got some subtraction in there, subtraction of negative numbers. So mixing it all up. Got 7/8 minus 4/9 minus negative 1/12. So we need to find the LCM of 8, 9, and 12. Eight is 2 times 2 times 2. 9 is 3 times 3. And 12 is 2 times 2 times 3. So match those up. Now bring them all down. You get 2 times 2 times 2 times 3 times 3. So the LCM is 72. So that'll be the denominator of all three of these fractions. Now 72 divided by 8 is 9. So we're going to multiply 7/8 by 9 over 9. 7 times 9 is 63 on top, 72 on the bottom. Next up, negative 4/9. Or we can just do 4/9 and subtract it. I'll just do 4/9. So 72 divided by 9 is 8, so we'll multiply this one by 8 over 8. So that's 32 over 72. And last one, negative 1/12. 72 divided by 12 is 6. So we'll multiply by 6 over 6 and get negative 6 over 72. Now let's add all these three together. Let's see, we're subtracting the second one. And with this last one, we're subtracting a negative. And negative. There we go. All right, so next step, since we're subtracting negative, that's like adding, so I'm going to convert this to addition. So that's 63 70-seconds minus 32 70-seconds plus 6 70-seconds. And then combining all those, we get 37 over 72. Your turn, number 13. So the LCM of 18, 9, and 6 is 18. So this fraction we can leave just as it is. So leave that as 17 over 18. 18 divided by 9 is 2, so we'll multiply the second fraction, 2/9, by 2 over 2. And 18 divided by 6 is 3, so we'll multiply 1/6 by 3 over 3. Next step, 7 over 18 minus, multiplying this out, that's 4/18 minus 3/18. 17 minus 4 minus 3 is 10, so that gives us 10/18. And now we need to reduce this, and both of these are even, so we can divide by 2, and we get 5/9, and that is fully simplified. And that is it for today. I hope you all have a great day.